Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar titled Secure Funding for Zero Emission Class 8 Freight and Port Drayage Trucks. We're excited to share details and information with you about this new funding solicitation from the South Coast AQMD. I'm Barbara Brentano with GNA. Before we get rolling, there's just a couple of things to keep in mind. A recording of this webinar will be sent out by the end of the week to the email that you used to register for this event. At the end of the webinar, before closing your browser, we kindly ask that you complete our quick 30-second survey. Your feedback is truly appreciated. Now I'd like to introduce Ping Gui with the South Coast AQMD. She will be presenting the information today about this funding solicitation. Ping, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ping Gui, Program Supervisor for the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Program for the South Coast AQMD. Today's presentation will provide an overview and some details about the first solicitation for the Zero Emission Class 8 Freight and Port Drayage Trucks category of the VW program. Also, the presentation recording and slides will be posted on South Coast AQMD's VW website in about a week's time. Topics that will be covered in today's presentation include an overview and some background on the VW program, requirements and specifics of the ZE Class 8 trucks category, such as eligibility, funding, some tentative timelines, and end by answering some of the questions that were received during registration. Therefore, please note, we won't be answering any live questions, but invite everyone to submit questions directly to the VW Funds email or toll-free phone number, and that information will be listed in the last slide and will also be provided on the webinar follow-up email. The VW Environmental Mitigation Trust is the result of the settlement with Volkswagen for their illegal use of defeat devices in certain 2.0 and 3.0 liter VW diesel vehicles, and the VW Trust Funds are intended to fully mitigate the excess NOx emissions caused by VW's actions. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, is the designated lead agency acting on the state's behalf as a beneficiary to implement California's allocation of VW Trust Funds. CARB approved a Beneficiary Mitigation Plan, or BMP, which identified program criteria for the state and the 5 funding categories shown in the pie chart. These project categories are administered statewide by 3 different air districts. But today's focus will be the Zero Emission Class 8 Freight and Port Drayage Trucks, or ZE Class 8 trucks category, administered by the South Coast AQMD. The first solicitation for the ZE Class 8 trucks category will begin accepting applications on August 18th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Solicitation will close when all funds have been expended. And eligible projects under this category include Class 8 freight trucks, dray trucks, waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers. The ZE Class 8 trucks category was allocated a total of $90 million, with a first installment of $27 million. The VW program is a statewide program and is available to both public and private entities. Funding for this category will replace older vehicles with zero-emission vehicles, and these replacement vehicles can be battery electric or hydrogen fuel cell. Solicitation will be first come, first served, and at least 50% of the funds will benefit projects in disadvantaged or low-income communities. To apply, you must use our web-based application portal. No paper or email applications will be accepted. The first step is to register as an applicant, which is defined as the legal owner of the vehicle or equipment. You can, but aren't required to, have a consultant help you through the application process. If you're using a consultant, you'll need to assign them an application you've created in the web-based application portal so they're able to work on your application. But a consultant cannot, once again, a consultant cannot sign an application for the applicant. If you choose not to use a consultant, South Coast AQMD staff is available to help you with any questions you may have. And if you're interested, we have more information on using a consultant in the resources section of our VW website. As for out-of-state international registration plans or IRPs, they're eligible if you can show through supporting documentation at least 75% operation in California. Once again, to be eligible for funding, you'll need to demonstrate at least 75% operation in California for the last 12 months. And if you're funded, the new vehicle must also operate at least 75% of the time in California for the term of the contract. Older new vehicles must be available for inspection, and fleets, not just the vehicles themselves, must be in compliance with all state, federal, and local regulations until time of replacement. Lastly, the old vehicle needs to be scrapped. The VW program is a scrap and replace program. Funding per entity as determined by tax ID is limited to 10% of program funds, or $2.7 million for this solicitation. And as always, the total award amount cannot exceed the actual cost of the new replacement vehicle. Co-funding or grant stacking that includes combining VW mitigation funds with other program funds implemented by CARB is not allowed. Therefore, VW program funds cannot be stacked with Moyer funds, HVIP funds, and many other state-implemented funds. However, private funds, local funds, and potentially some federal funds, excluding DARA, may be stacked, though these will be determined on a case-by-case basis. The next few slides will go into more details about eligibility and funding criteria, but the table shown here is a great reference tool and is available for download on our VW website. Again, eligible vehicles include Class 8 freight trucks, drayage trucks, waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers. Replacement to a zero-emission vehicle is the only option under this funding category. Therefore, repower or retrofit options are not eligible. Eligible engine model years for this solicitation are 1992 to 2012, depending on the vehicle's compliance with all state, federal, and local rules and regulations. The VW program generally has two different funding caps, but the award amount will always be the lesser of the two. The first cap is a percentage of the vehicle cost, and the second cap is a set maximum dollar amount. These limits are different between public and private entities, with 100% for government-owned vehicles and 75% for non-government-owned vehicles. This slide will show everyone an example of how award funding is determined. In this scenario, the key factors are the vehicle is owned by a non-government entity and the total cost as provided by a vendor quote is $400,000. We reference our funding table to obtain the two caps and see that 75% of 400,000 is 300,000, but the maximum funding cap is 200,000. Therefore, the award amount for this vehicle is $200,000. Again, applications for the ZE Class 8 trucks category will be available beginning Tuesday, August 18th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So please don't panic if you've already registered for the online application portal but don't see the application. Project evaluation and contracting will occur continuously throughout, and grant payment can potentially begin by the latter part of 2021. Annual reporting will depend on vehicle in-service dates, but applicants will need to submit 3 years of annual report, potentially beginning mid-2022. Since solicitation is first come, first served, it's very important that when you apply, you have all information and supplemental attachments ready to go. To apply, you'll need to provide the following for the existing vehicle and engine. Vehicle and engine information with photos as supporting documentation, a clean copy of the vehicle title, compliance documentation from CARB such as truckers, or if you do not need to be registered in truckers, the Drayage truck registry will suffice for trucks that operate only as Drayage trucks. 12 months of usage records, insurance documentation, and vehicle registration. Also, you'll need to provide the existing engine's executive order. You'll also need to provide the following for the replacement vehicle and motor. Replacement vehicle and motor information, a vendor quote with clear breakdown of costs, including taxes, new vehicle executive order, and information on infrastructure readiness to charge or fuel your zero-emission fleet. Also needed are 6 required business documents which are available for download in the Grant Management System or application portal, as well as on South Coast AQMD's VW website. And these include the Business Information Request Form, Business Status Certifications, the W-9, Form 590 Certificate of Debarment, and Campaign Contribution Disclosure Form. To further assist applicants with their applications, we've created a comprehensive application checklist and comprehensive supporting documentation checklist. These files can be viewed and downloaded from our VW webpage under Resources, Zero Emission Class 8 Freight and Port Drayage Trucks, which is linked in the slide. We highly recommend everyone taking a look, as these files indicate everything needed to complete the application. During application evaluation, we're checking to make sure your project meets all eligibility and compliance requirements, calculating NOx emission reduction, and determining how much funding a project is allowed. Selected projects will then be offered a contract, which for the VW program will be a minimum of 3 years from a date of new vehicle in service date. The contract will have requirements to meet milestones such as the in-service dates of the new vehicles, usage demonstrating at least 75% operation in California, reporting, record keeping, and allowing the program administrator or their designee access to vehicle or equipment inspections and record audits. So when do I get paid? Payment is by reimbursement and only after we've received a complete and valid invoice, verify that all program requirements have been met, ensure that the new vehicle has been placed into service, all inspections have been completed and reviewed, and we've received proof that the old vehicle has been scrapped. Do you need to keep records? The answer is yes. After your contract is executed, you need to submit 3 years of annual reports to keep all VW program records for the entire term of the contract, plus 3 additional years, and demonstrate that the vehicles operate within California for the entire term of the contract. And that concludes the main presentation. Now we'll go over some common questions received during registration. Are vouchers available for purchasing new equipment in lieu of reimbursement? As mentioned previously, payment is by reimbursement only. The VW program is not rebate or voucher-based. Do waste vehicles with CNG systems qualify? Yes, alternative fueled vehicles may apply for funding under the VW program, but as a reminder, for this particular category, replacement technology must be zero emission. Can I order vehicles or equipment before I'm under contract? Having a purchase order prior to an executed contract will not deem your project ineligible. However, you must demonstrate that there are no financial obligations and you cannot take possession of the new unit, and placing an order prior to contract execution is done so at the risk of the applicant. An example of a purchase order with no financial obligation will be one where no down payment has been made or the down payment is fully refundable. Can a fleet request funding for vehicles in excess of the 2.7 million? Our grant management system or application portal doesn't limit the number of project units that an applicant may apply for. However, funding will be capped per entity at 2.7 million. And for those applicants who applied for more than that amount, we reserve the right to select the most cost-effective projects to move forward. Do the trucks have to be driven in South Coast AQMD district boundaries? No. Funding under the VW program is available to all public and private entities that operate within the state of California. And for this solicitation, the percentage of operation is 75%. So as long as you operate 75% of the time within the state, you can be eligible. Are research and development projects eligible for funding? No. So funding under the VW program is not available for research and development projects. However, please feel free to contact us directly as we may be able to redirect you to another funding source. What is the expected in-service date for the replacement vehicles? For this solicitation, the in-service period is 24 months. applicants must purchase and place their vehicles in service within this time period. The program announcement mentions a service and maintenance requirement. What is needed to satisfy this? Most manufacturers provide a network of service and maintenance for zero-emission vehicles. This agreement should be provided with a vendor quote, ensuring that the replacement vehicle will remain fully operational and supported. How are the projects ranked? The solicitation is first come, first served. Therefore, all applications will be date and time stamped upon submittal. Therefore, evaluation will be in order of that date and time stamp. And lastly, will IT assistance be provided in case there are web page related technical difficulties? Yes, of course. IT support will be provided for the grant management system. If you are having problems with your online application portal, please email us directly at vwfunds@aqmd.gov. However, do please note our IT staff will only be available between Tuesdays through Fridays from 7:30 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. If you have any other questions or want additional information, please visit our website at aqmd.gov/VW. I highly encourage everyone to take a look at the resources section where you'll find the funding and eligibility table, category-specific frequently asked questions, which will be updated, a guide for using a consultant, and a lot more information. And of course, you can always reach us via phone or email. We also included some helpful links such as the California VW webpage, administered by the 3 air districts, and links to information by CARB such as the BMP. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and once again, thank you for joining us.